Hey everybody, happy Friday. I'm so excited that the weekend is almost here. I have so much language learning I want to do this weekend. A lot of reading in Mandarin Chinese, but also my German stuff. It's going to be great. So let's end the week with a bang and a really good topic, which is going to be, should you study a language every single day? Is it the only way to do it? Is it the best strategy in every situation? Or are there other ways that you can divide your time to still study a language on a regular basis, still build it into a habit, but just not a daily habit? Well, I'm going to share my thoughts on this question with you in the video. So this is another video that was born out of a weekly language learning diary entry that I wrote over on my Patreon page. But in this case, it was kind of indirect. So last week I wrote about how I finally had a really well-balanced week between Mandarin Chinese studies and German studies. So I've been going through this interesting phase where for a while, my Mandarin studies were fantastic, but my German studies were really struggling. And then I finally pulled my German studies up, but Mandarin went down. And it was this interesting ebbing and flowing of these two languages. It's taken me a while of just doing these weekly, really small improvements, but just every week getting better and saying, okay, cool, what went well? You know, Mandarin was good this week. Well, what could I do better next week? And so finally, last week, I really had a solid week. So I wrote about this in my weekly, language learning diary entry. And then one of my Patreon supporters asked a question, because I did sort of mention how one of the ways I did this was I did a lot of German during the week, and I did a lot more Mandarin Chinese on the weekend. And so Nicholas asked, is it okay to do that? Is that an efficient method? Because he mentioned how for him, he's always usually, strived for daily study. But, maybe he is asking too much of himself. That's what he said in the comment. And this was a really good question. And so the short answer, in my opinion, is no. You do not have to study every single day. Now, I have talked extensively about the importance of making language learning a habit. And I have also spoken about the utility of making language learning a daily habit. And it is a very powerful thing to do. However, it's not always practical. So first of all, you may just have a lot of things happening in your life. You may have other priorities. You may have a job, family, other interests. Now on this particular channel and in this community, there are also lots of people who are learning a lot of different languages. And so, studying every single language every single day, in addition to other things you might be doing, like I say, it's not necessarily the most practical thing, but I think a lot of people, they do put an enormous amount of pressure on themselves because they say, well, I have to do it every day. I have to study every language every day. And if you can do it, then fair play. But I actually don't think it's necessarily the best strategy in every situation. So a few months ago, I made a video where I talked about this really interesting time management system that I created for a client of mine years ago when I was doing foreign language coaching and teaching full-time. And I call this my 3-tier prioritized rotation system. And I actually designed this because I had a client who was learning 3 languages. It was French, Spanish, and Japanese. But he was also doing billiards and he was learning jazz piano. And these were like really big priorities. And he was finding I just can't do all of these every day. And so what would happen is he would burn out and he would just not be able to keep up with all the different things. So what I did is I talked to him about, well, let's figure out what our priorities are. And so in the end, we came up with these 3 tiers. And I'll link the video in the description. I recommend you watch that video because I go into it in depth. But the point here is that we figured out, Japanese was top priority, right? Needed to do that every single day. So that was sort of tier 1, every single day, intensive. But then we figured out that Spanish and French, they were kind of equal. They were a similar level, but they were also pretty equal in priority. And so what we did is we decided that he would do Spanish for 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, for example. Then he would do French for 3 days. So let's say Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then Sunday was kind of a wild card, right? You could either, do something else, do nothing, do both, pick whichever one, you might want to do. It just depends. But that worked out really, really well. And then the third tier was, jazz piano and playing billiards. And so essentially this was whenever you have time. And so I found that this has been so effective. I wrote about it in my book, and so many people have found this really, really positively impactful in their lives because, again, it reduces this stress to study every single day. And it helps you realize that, wow, there is a way for me to systematically build this language study into my weekly routine, right? And I can ensure that I will do it every single week, and not just once a week, I'll do it multiple times a week. But it gives me the flexibility that I can sort of, not put so much pressure on myself. Because if you're learning 3 languages, if you're learning 5 languages or more, the chances are that they're probably not all the exact same priority. Now, it may seem like they are, but again, sometimes I think you have to think about what's practical, right? What's important. And yeah, it's okay to sort of have a rotation. It's okay if you decide, I'm gonna learn Hungarian for now, and that's my daily, study activity. It's most important to me. It's okay for Hungarian to be your top priority today, and maybe in a few months it becomes second or third, right? And you can rotate around. So that's the first thing. And to focus a bit more on what happened to me last week, I just have so many things happening right now. I know that I've said this a lot of times, so sorry for repeating it, but yeah, I'm working on Journaly, which is a massive, massive, massive endeavor, and it's so close to going into beta. I have 500 people waiting right now to join the testing effort. And so that is a lot of work. I'm studying data science. I'm also doing a lot of computer science studying these days. And of course I have a full-time job. And then I'm studying Mandarin Chinese and German and making 3 videos a week on YouTube, right? And doing Patreon. It's just so many things. And so it's very difficult for me to study Mandarin and German every single day equally. So like I said, what I found is that focusing on German during the weekdays, and then, if I can get some Mandarin study in, that's great, but not a big deal. And then focusing on Mandarin on the weekend, that was really, really effective. It helped me because in the end, I did more German and I did more Mandarin than all the previous weeks combined. Because in the previous weeks, I was so focused on trying to balance the two every single day that I ended up doing less. I ended up having this sort of paralysis because when I finally got 30 minutes, it was hard to decide which one should I do. Now, what I'm finding this week is that it's actually continued to improve. So this week, I found that, Mandarin Chinese has naturally settled into this thing I do when I'm out walking. And I do it kind of before bed, and sometimes even at lunchtime, I'll read my graded reader. Whereas German has now settled in to this thing I do in the mornings. It's the only thing I do in the morning in terms of language study, because after that I do other projects before work. So again, this has happened organically, but the thing that enabled it was releasing the pressure and just saying, as long as I do German every day during the week, and as long as I do a really solid amount of Mandarin study on Saturday and Sunday, it really helped. So there you go. Those are just a few thoughts that I have. Again, everyone's situation is different, and I still do believe that ultimately, if you can make a language you're learning a daily habit, even if you're just spending any time at all, even if on one day all you do is listen to a few songs in German, or you watch a few YouTube videos from a favorite YouTuber in Polish, even that, it's fantastic. Just spending any time with the language every day, getting any exposure you can, it's an amazing way to approach language learning. But like I said, we have to be practical. And I think that ultimately, if we have this obsession that we have to study every language every single day, I think it can actually do more harm than good, and it can put a lot of pressure on us. And ultimately, learning a language should be fun, should be enjoyable. And so I really hope that this perspective is helpful for some of you, and I would definitely love to read your comments and, see your own thoughts on this issue. So with that being said, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I'll definitely be doing a lot of Mandarin reading this weekend. I've been loving it. I'm hoping to finish my very first graded reader book and get on to the next one. And yeah, I just love it. So see you guys next week for another awesome set of videos.